One of the people that's going to have to worry about that is KOC, Kevin O'Connell, new Vikings head coach, only the 10th coach in Vikings history.
Yeah, what's been our era? Childress, who was before Childress? Tice,
Leslie Frazier,
Green,
Brad Childress, Mike Tice, Leslie Frazier, and then Mike Zimmer. Now Kevin O'Connell. None of them are as good as Bud Grant, but maybe Kevin will. But yeah, Kevin O'Connell, officially the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, which is awesome. They signed him. People were worried. Some people were worried that Sean McVay was going to retire and that Kevin O'Connell would take over and then the Vikings would be left without any of the guys that they wanted. Kevin O'Connell took his time because he wanted time to relax with his family. He wanted to celebrate the Super Bowl win. So the people that were worried were just worried because it's the Vikings and that's the sort of thing that would happen. Yeah, but he's already got a good staff set up here. I wrote them all down. Vikings head coach, O'Connell. Quarterback coach is Chris O'Hara. Formerly was the Rams offensive assistant coach. The assistant quarterback coach is Gerard Johnson. You probably remember that because I believe he was a former quarterback, but he was also the Colts quarterback coordinator. Our running back coach is Curtis Modkins, who was the running back coach of the Broncos with Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. So I think that's a big positive.
Yeah, they
wide receiver. Keenan McCardell.
The only person to be retained, I believe.
He is currently the only one signed that has been retained. Tight end coach is Brian Angelicchio, who was the Panthers tight end coach. The offensive line coach is Chris Cooper, and the assistant offensive line coach is Justin Rashadi.
Yeah, we need
both
all the
came
help
from
we
the
can
Broncos.
Get.
Broncos assistant coach. Yes, we do.
Line.
And the Broncos offensive line has gotten better every year. They weren't necessarily stellar every year, but they improved every year.
Right, and I think
that's the sign of a good coach.
Yeah, we got some pieces on our O-line that are very good. So, I mean...
And it sounds like they've retained most of the scouting department, and I think that's always big. Defensive coordinator Ed Donatel, Broncos defensive coordinator. Yeah. So 4 guys from the Broncos so far. Defensive line coach Chris Rumpf, that was the Bears defensive line coach. And then we do not have a linebackers coach, defensive back coach, or special teams coordinator yet. We also don't have an offensive coordinator yet. But assistant head coach is Mike Pettin, who previously was the Bears senior defensive advisor.
Yeah, and a former Browns head coach.
And former Packers defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Let's see here. So the Ed Donatel, that's a big coordinator position. He worked under Vic Fangio for over 10 years.
I believe he's 61 years old.
Yeah, very different in age range, but it's good to have kind of like to have some senior minds, a young coach. So
you can't have everybody be a young
gun.
New mindset. Like you got to, in a corporate business, they all preach diversity, culture. Like you want to have the more opinions from varying backgrounds that you have, the higher success you have. That's why Google has skyrocketed because they started hiring everyone from a different background and all of a sudden they just launched.
Sure.
Now every company wants to do the same thing. When I used to work for a tech company, they did this. They preached diversity. Yeah. I mean, whether it's race, culture, age, gender, that's why, I would love to get a female background here just for have an assistant coach, even if she's not one of these linebackers coach, special teams.
Sure.
Like if we can get an assistant or somebody that's just a different background, it would be nice. Yeah.
And another thing, Ed Donatel has for the last 12 years he has been working in a 3-4 defense. Mm-hmm. However, before that, he did have 3 or 4 years where he worked in a 4-3. So, I don't really know what we're going to do. I'd assume he's going to stick with what he's done more recently and majority has had success with in the 3-4. But I think it also opens that since he's done both kind of schemes, he can utilize the players in different ways. And that being more so, KOC, Cock had his press conference today. And he did name drop some people, or some of our vets along the lines of Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, and Anthony Barr, who's actually a free agent. But it's interesting him name dropping those players, especially Anthony Barr, since he is a free agent, as like people that he sees as good fits for our defensive scheme. I think that's interesting. And then as far as Mike Pettin goes, in regards to like the Colts assistant GM that we got or something, fans are like, no, he's bad. He's horrible. Ryan Grigson, I want to say is his name, but like him and Mike Pettin, everyone's like, oh, he's been so bad in his other jobs. It's like you said, another mind. Mike Pettin's had a lot of success as a defensive coordinator.
He was a fall guy in Cleveland.
Yeah.
He was just the fall guy. I think he's better than what is what is portrayed.
I don't know. I'm fine with getting all these, like, the more minds you can get here, the better. And, you know, I'm welcome Mike Pettin. He's part of our team. He's part of our staff. So
yeah, I'm fine with it. I think if that's what they want, it's we said it, with a new regime, whatever decision they make, we just support whatever they say.
Stand behind.
The whole thing is to be doing something different.
Yeah, in my opinion, there's probably two people on our roster that I would try to burn this new regime to the ground if they got rid of, and that'd be Justin Jefferson or Brian O'Neill. You could get rid of anybody else, and I'd be like, all right, like, that's weird, but like, I'll stand behind it. So
yeah, I think those are the only two untouchables on offense, which sounds crazy because people would be like, Dalvin, Thielen.
Dalvin's like, here's another fun fact. Dalvin is actually 7th all time in yards per game.
I believe it.
Like 86 yards. Jim Brown has like 104.
But that's the thing, though, is like people would be like, you really would be okay with them getting rid of Dalvin or Thielen? It's like they're both expensive contracts.
Thielen's like 16 mil.
Right, they're both expensive contracts. Thielen is definitely like a red zone target, but he's lost a lot of the deep play. So you got guys like KJ that are biting at his ankles to take over, and Justin Jefferson's already a number 1. Like Thielen's a number 2 already.
Amir Smith-Marset can get more time. Like he's expendable, and that sucks to say, but
my thing is Madison has proven that he can't step into the 1. So you would have to draft a high running back if you were to get rid of Dalvin. If they decided to get rid of him, that's the type of guy to be like, that's weird, but if that's what you want, you have a plan. They must have a plan.
Yeah.
Defense, I don't think there's really any untouchable, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Kendricks would be my untouchable, but I mentioned it last week. If they do move to a 3-4, he might be better being moved.
Yeah.
It just depends. If they keep Barr, I think Kendricks will succeed because he'll have somebody that's like a more natural middle linebacker in a 3-4. I also think Kendricks is smart enough.
They've played with each other for so long too. They know what the others' capabilities are, what they can do, what they expect them to do. They've played together through college even too. So
I just don't think any defensive player is really untouchable, which is also crazy because like I love Harrison Smith. Some of these guys just that were untouchable in the past are no longer untouchable. Yeah. I wanted to make another Deshaun Watson joke there. You hear that, Deshaun? Everyone's untouchable. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about Kevin O'Connell except my expectations are almost as high as my hopes.
He did mention Kirk. I wanted to say the thing they talked about with Kirk. So obviously Kwesi and KOC were up there, and they asked him. One of the guys was like, "Kevin, do you is Kirk
legally take Kirk to be your wife?
Yeah, is Kirk Cousins going to be your quarterback for 2022?" And he said, "Well, Kirk's under contract." He's like, "Kirk's under contract here. I've talked to him. Like, I expect to do the things, create a system to utilize the stuff that he does right and that make him excel in those areas." And then he immediately switched to, it's 11. We got 11 people out there. It's not a quarterback that's going to win the game. It's all 11 guys that are out there. Yeah. Make a system that's going to make all of them excel. So
the quarterback is the key piece, but he's one of 11. A source close to Kevin did say that they are interested in extending Kirk's contract. If you're a Vikings fan and you're depressed about the fact they currently have a top 3 quarterback in franchise history behind the helm.
Yeah, a lot of reports came out that that Kirk would be Kirk's not interested in taking a pay cut, and I believe it if you're talking about this 1 year, like I believe that if you're talking about this 1 year, like why would he be like, it'd be like, I'm under contract for this year, we signed this deal, you wanted this to happen, but I also think that report is misleading because it also didn't talk about extensions. I think an extension is the way for him to get his number down, not just.
I think a restructure. A restructure would be best, where we can add a year on, move a lot of the guaranteed cap away to the next year. I think
that's what you do. Yeah, in an extension wise, be like you have the 45. Guaranteed or 35 of the 45 is guaranteed. When he hits a certain point, it's all going to be guaranteed, but you move that number into a chunk of like this year, and then the next 2 years or whatever is not as hefty.
And then I think you make up for the money and incentives. Take us to the Super Bowl and you get a big bonus. Take us to the NFC Championship and get a bonus.
45 right now. Say hypothetically you give him the 2 extra years and $100 million total. Mm-hmm. It's like you've got the $45 million this year. That means his next 2 years is averaged at like 27.5.
Right. Which is much more.
Yeah. And you're going to pay him the 45 this year anyway.
I'm not saying this because it's Kirk. I feel this way about every quarterback in football.
Absolutely. Derek Carr's supposed to get like 40 now.
A lot of these guys, yes, they deserve it. They've earned it. But when they don't end up not winning the Super Bowl or not even making it to the Super Bowl, they also need to understand that they are the reason why. Like if the Chiefs again don't make it to the Super Bowl next year and kind of flop in the playoffs like they did this year, that's all on Mahomes. Like
Mahomes making 50.
I don't care if they get 32nd ranked defense and 32nd ranked offensive line. That's because you're paying too much for Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is worth that much money in his talent, but you cannot surround a team if you want consistent dynastic. If you want to win 5 Super Bowls out of the next 10 years, you can't pay a quarterback that way.
Yeah, and you got Stafford at like 44. Derek Carr's going to get 40. Mahomes,
they might win one.
Josh Allen gets 40. Mahomes is 50. Kyler wants 50. These numbers are going to be, these numbers are absurd.
I could see all those guys maybe winning 1 Super Bowl, which is great for them. They might win 1, but if those fans, when you get a $45 million quarterback, those fans are expecting you to lead a dynasty. They expect you to make the Super Bowl the next 5 years. That doesn't happen when you pay quarterbacks that much. It just doesn't. It does not. Tom Brady has made people believe that that's the case, but Tom Brady wasn't getting paid that much. I agree. I feel it's not just Kirk. I'm not saying that because I'm hating on Kirk. It is 100%. If we had Aaron Rodgers, I'd be like $45 million is too much.
Yeah, we just talked about him being a top 3 NFC quarterback, top 3 Vikings quarterback of all time. Like he's a top 10, fringe top 10 quarterback in the league right now. Anyway, so we're not talking smack about Kirk. It's just from a dynasty approach. We talk about dynasties a lot here. We love to see dynasties, but in order to have a dynasty, you need to have your cap spread out throughout your entire team.
Without that cap spread out, it's just you have to catch lightning in a bottle. You have
windows instead of being like competitive every year.
You don't have comfortable space. You don't create room for mistakes. You have to play perfect football, hit draft picks. Everything has to fall into place when you're paying your quarterback 30% of your cap. When your quarterback's willing to take a pay cut, $25 million instead of $35 million, so that you can add that extra piece, you all of a sudden you allow yourself to throw 3 extra interceptions because your team has the talent around you to make up for it now.
Yeah, you have the opportunity to get players on both sides of the ball that can make an impact. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Like last year, the Vikings had the 12th highest paid defense, and we were like the 30th.
But a lot of those guys were on 1-year deals because they had to make emergency deals, because that's all they have to work with is like emergency deals, because the majority of the consistent money is all in a couple players. I understand that is very hard, and the salary cap wizards out there are very good at what they do.
Yeah, Rob Brzezinski, shout out to him.
But oh my gosh, you're hurting your team. I can't help but like I want all the players to make the maximum amount that they can, but then they also can't be upset when you're an all-time great that doesn't win a Super Bowl, or you're a team that feels like they're good every year, but they can't seem to make the Super Bowl. Well, each person takes an extra $1 million off. Quarterback or the big heavy hitters take an extra, like a pay cut. Guarantee you will make the playoffs every year, make the Super Bowl 5 out of 10 years.
Right. What if you go up to Kirk and you're like, hey, we want to stretch your deal out for 2 more years. This would give us an opportunity to go get Brandon Scherf if we did this.
Right. We want you to restructure because we have the intent to offer Scherf a massive contract. Do you want that? And if he tells you no,
Brandon Scherf next to Brian O'Neill, come on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
You would have the best right side in football in our offensive line that I can think of in Vikings memory.
Wyatt Davis plays center?
He played center in college, but he's not a natural NFL center in my opinion.
So you bring Mason Cole back then.
Right. Yep. Wyatt Davis would end up being a backup guard, which Wyatt Davis is going to Texas to get trained under an offensive line guru. He just didn't play because he had a childish bitch boy as a head coach.